Beyond Reason Radio.
All right, so we might as well start with the news of the day, the top news of the day. It's what everyone is talking about. This, according to NBC News, actually, a series of pipe bombs were sent to several prominent Democrats in CNN's New York newsroom, triggering a nationwide investigation Wednesday in bipartisan condemnation. The targets included former President Obama, Hillary Clinton, former Attorney General Eric Holder, and former CIA Director John Brennan, officials and investigators said. And this was all started, I believe, earlier this week with something sent to George Soros. So let's see here. It says so far the devices have been what appeared to be pipe bombs. This was a special agent in charge of the FBI Counterterrorism Division and Joint Terrorism Task Force in New York City. The explosives were wrapped with tape and had some sort of device attached to it, law enforcement officials told NBC News. The device itself was packed with an explosive powder and a non-combustible white powder of some kind that was found in the envelope. It was unclear how or when the device was supposed to detonate. Well, this is Beyond Reason Radio, special 6 p.m. edition of Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee, the voice of reason in a world that, if you look at the news today, you hear the news today, is definitely beyond reason. So many times when I start this show, I realize that the perfect name of this show was Beyond Reason, because the world needs a voice of reason, and I try to be that for you because the world is definitely beyond reason. We are on until 7 p.m. tonight right here on News Radio 93.1 WFLA, and we'll take your calls as well and texts coming up. I have a lot to say on what's going on, a lot of different stuff. There's no way I'll get to it all, so might as well get started. But first, I have to introduce, of course, the ever-producer of Beyond Reason, Mr. Tom Benson.
How you doing? It's daylight out, and you're on the radio. How about
I know.
that? Woo.
That's beyond reason. It really is Yaffee hour. Kind of like happy hour, like I said, but it's Yaffee hour.
Early voting started yesterday. I went and voted, and the place was packed.
Yeah, you said it was. So how long did you wait in line?
I didn't. I just got there at the right moment.
Oh, okay, great. Wow.
Walked right in. There were like 3 people ahead of me, but there were several people there that were checking people in. So I had no wait at all.
So, you going to tell us how you voted?
Well,
it would take all show.
That's right.
With all those different amendments. We're going to get into some of that stuff later in the show. Actually, the other big topic of today, first you have what's going on with these bombs sent to liberals and Democrats. But the other big topic is at 7 p.m. tonight, Ron DeSantis and Andrew Gillum will be debating again for the second time. And Andrew Gillum has gotten into a little bit of trouble because it looks like he lied about receiving a free Hamilton ticket from what ended up being an undercover FBI agent.
I saw that, yes.
And it's really DeSantis made a really good point this morning on Fox and Friends when he was on. Mm-hmm. Because Andrew Gillum has constantly said, well, yeah, Tallahassee's under investigation, the government up there, but I'm not a part of this investigation. I'm not the target of this investigation. I'm not under investigation.
Sounds like somebody we know.
But, well, I was going to say, I was like, so are you saying it's a witch hunt?
Uh-huh.
I think Andrew Gillum's saying it's a witch hunt. Uh-huh. But he has to be under investigation. If you have an undercover FBI agent literally giving stuff to people right next to him, it's hard for me to believe that he was not a part of this investigation at all. I mean, I don't know how you could argue that he wasn't. So, and then we had our attorney on. I produced Bud's show in the morning, Good Morning Orlando, and we had our attorney Jeff Kaufman on, and he was saying what he thinks is basically they caught Andrew Gillum, and then they got him to talk. They got like a plea deal out of him.
Uh-huh.
They caught him with this so he could spill the beans on other stuff. So that's what is really going on. So that's going to be bigger news as it comes about. But I want to talk first about what's going on in this country today, especially with someone sending bombs out to these different Democrat leaders. First of all, actually, I have a cut from Trump here. Tom Mentz, if you can get that ready. Trump commented on this today as well, and he pretty much said what needs to be said. This is what he said. Come on.
The packages are being inspected by top explosive experts, and a major federal investigation is now underway. The full weight of our government is being deployed to conduct this investigation and bring those responsible for these despicable acts to justice. We will spare no resources or expense in this effort. In these times, we have to unify. We have to come together and send one very clear, strong, unmistakable message that acts or threats of political violence of any kind have no place in the United States of America. This egregious conduct is abhorrent to everything we hold dear and sacred as Americans.
So that was Trump's comments. That's basically the right thing he needs to say. Of course, I want to get behind the microphone and tell you that things are going to get better soon, that we are going to unite soon, that we are going to get past this soon, and we're going to get rid of this horrible polarization that is now turning into violence. Unfortunately, I just don't see the evidence of that today. I feel like things are just getting worse and worse and worse. And the reaction to this today and the reaction to Trump today kind of is an example of it. So this was actually Carrie Cordero. She is a CNN analyst. It says media there, cut to, go ahead. And her immediate reaction, this was a lot of reaction from the media, was immediately to point fingers. This is what is happening today. This is what happens every time something like this happens. What we do is we play the blame game, and both sides are guilty of this. And of course, today it was the left and the media doing the same thing. This is what she said.
It also is hard to ignore the fact that the president, everybody knows that the president is the one who has contributed and is the primary proponent behind the coarseness of American political discourse.
So
it also
yeah, that was it. There we go. Immediately is about blaming Trump. Let's look at the violent instances in the past couple of years. There is no doubt that Trump doesn't help the situation. Trump has very heated political rhetoric. I have condemned a lot of that rhetoric on this show. In fact, if you follow me on Twitter at Beyond Reason R, I pointed out earlier this week to Trump because Trump was complaining about Democratic mobs while at the same time praising a congressman who body slammed a reporter. So obviously you can't complain about mobs and violence and stuff and then praise a guy who body slams a reporter. But let's look at all the violence we've had in the past couple years. We had a guy shoot up a bunch of Republicans, try to kill a bunch of Republicans on a baseball field. He was a radical Bernie Sanders supporter. Before that, we had it was a Black Lives Matter activist in Dallas shoot police officers. Of course, we had Charlottesville, and someone on the extreme right ended up running over an innocent girl and killing her. Then we have Antifa that has come out and destroyed college campuses and has now started violence, and they've blocked traffic in Portland and done some pretty bad things there. We've had people, harassed, congressmen, other stuff, harassed at restaurants. It happened to Mitch McConnell again this week. But what also happened last week was Nancy Pelosi was harassed going into a building. And she was harassed as a communist and everything. And I told you this was going to happen. When the left was so outraged by Trump, I told you what's eventually going to happen is the other side is going to want to fight back, because too many times I hear we have to fight fire with fire. And I keep telling people, no, that just creates more fire. It just makes things worse. So this is a problem on both sides. This is a problem with our country right now. And of course, you know what I think the answer is. The answer is Jesus. If you actually follow the teachings of Jesus, we wouldn't be doing this to each other. But people aren't doing it. There's a couple of things that are causing this problem. Once, the fact is both sides believe in totally different things now, that it's hard to find compromise. The other problem is social media. Social media seems to be bringing out the worst of us. So you have bad inclinations in your head. Now you can go online and find lots of other people who have those bad inclinations, and you can find websites that reinforce your bad ideas. And it grows and it grows and it grows, and it gets to where we are today. I have been saying for a while, what we have to do is learn to peacefully disagree. That means we don't go to the worst intentions of people. I get this all the time. When someone disagrees with me online, when someone disagrees with me on social media or whatever, I will get people say I'm bought by Bain Capital or something, because Bain Capital used to own Clear Channel, or they were part of that buyout. So I'm part of the Romney media. I've been accused of being on conspiracy theories. I've been accused of all kinds of stuff. And this happens on both sides. You know, it was interesting. On my vacation when I was in Virginia, I happened to be flipping through the channels. And I was looking at, I think it was on HBO or whatever. And I noticed Pod Saves America was on. They had some kind of TV special on. I think it was HBO. And they do a pretty popular podcast out there. And they were doing a TV special. And immediately what they started doing was basically calling Republicans bigoted, homophobic, racists. And I'm thinking, this is what we do now. We attack people's motivations. We can't just disagree on ideas anymore. We can't disagree on policy anymore. We attack people at the very core. So if I post a story that I think's very interesting, instead of going through the actual what is being talked about, it's like an opinion piece. Instead of, disagreeing with the piece and what it says, the ideas in the piece, immediately, well, it's from that website, so I won't even look at it. I get this from both sides. If I post something from the Washington Post, oh, that's fake news, Washington Post. If I post something from Conservative Conservative Review, you can't even look at that. This is why we are where we are. And Trump is just as bad with this. He calls the other side evil. You cannot coexist with your fellow man that disagree with you if you are convinced that the reason they disagree with you is because they're evil at the core. I don't believe everyone who disagrees with me is evil at the core. I just don't. Maybe we just have different ideas. Maybe we just have different opinions. That's why we have so many problems today. So the other big story of the day is Ron DeSantis and Andrew Gillum. And there's actually an example I want to get to in a sec of how what Andrew Gillum has been doing lately kind of feeds into a lot of this. We're also going to talk to my friend Carl Jackson. He has a show here Monday night, the Carl Jackson Show. He has a lot of different takes when it comes to DeSantis and Gillum and the race for governor and also the Florida Amendment. So we're going to get to that in a sec. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I am your host, Michael Yaffee, the voice of reason in a world that is beyond reason, and we will be right back.
Listen to the latest episodes of Beyond Reason. Download the podcast at Spreaker.com. The voice of reason in a world that is beyond reason is back now.
Yes, welcome back to the show, everyone. This is Beyond Reason Radio, a special edition of Beyond Reason Radio from 6 to 7 p.m. right here on News Radio 93.1 WFLA. So in less than an hour, you're going to have another debate between Andrew Gillum and Ron DeSantis. Now, in the last debate, there was something that Andrew Gillum kept bringing up, and this really bothers me, and this is part of the explanation, I think, of how things are just so polarized and how we think the worst of people in everything. Andrew Gillum constantly playing the race card. Go ahead and play cut one for me, Tom.
The congressman let us know exactly where he was going to take this race the day after he won the nomination. The monkey up comment said it all. And he has only continued in the course of his campaign to draw all the attention he can to the color of my skin. And the truth is, you know what? I'm black. I've been black all my life. So far as I know, I will die black.
So, and then later on in the debate, it came up again. Go ahead and play cut two for me, Tom Benson.
He's used the office to benefit himself. I put taxpayers first and gave up any perks because I think people are sick of that. But the question is, did you pay for the Hamilton ticket, or did the undercover FBI agent pay for the Hamilton ticket? Did you pay to stay in the villa in Costa Rica? Where are the receipts? You have not proven that you paid for anything, and that's the problem.
So here's the direct answer. I don't take free trips from anybody. I'm a hardworking person. I know that may not fit your description of what you think people like me do, but I worked hard for everything that I've gotten in my life, and I don't need anybody handing me anything for free.
Okay, and actually later on in that, he was basically making the point that, oh, well, you just think that I'm getting free stuff because I'm black. I mean, just ridiculous stuff. And one person I know who this really drives crazy, this kind of rhetoric that the right is just racist, is Carl Jackson. Carl Jackson, I've seen you post a lot of stuff on your Facebook and your Twitter, really upset at the Democrats for playing the race card. So I really appreciate you joining me on the show. He has a show here Monday nights on WFLA. First, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. So when you hear Gillum constantly playing the race card, what do you think about it?
Yeah, it is frustrating. Listen, we're not in the 1960s anymore. I mean, it's 2018, soon to be 2019, and we've made, when I say we, this country, we've made tremendous racial progress. That's evidenced by President Barack Obama. That's evidenced by Mayor Gillum himself. So to act like the world is racist and everyone is against you because of the color of your skin is absolute nonsense. And even if you did believe it, I believe they are living evidence, if you will, that, hey, even if it does exist, and of course racism does exist, we'll never totally get rid of racism until we go see Jesus in heaven. It's we see how far blacks have come, and I'm just sick of it. I'm sick of it for the sake of blacks being held down by race baiters like Andrew Gillum. I got to tell you, I was when he won the primary, I was really concerned that the Democrats could win just based on the fact that he was black, and the narrative would be the first black governor of Florida. But he surprised me in the debate, because I did not expect him to play the race card so forcefully. I didn't expect him to play the race card so quickly. So that really annoyed me. The fact that the man is obvious. I mean, you're a partisan hack if you haven't read the information about Andrew Gillum and at least don't suspect that the guy could be guilty of corruption. I believe that he is guilty of corruption. I believe that he did take the Hamilton tickets, the New York City hotel room. I believe all of that stuff was paid for by the FBI agent, and I believe he wrongfully accepted all of that stuff. And the fact that if you question a black man in power, and a black man that can potentially wield the power of the governorship of the entire state of Florida, if you question him, it's racism. You're never going to get past racism. I'll tell you what, it's racism when you can't question somebody because of the color of their skin. Right. If there's fair evidence, if there's reasonable evidence to believe that someone could possibly be guilty of something, and you question them, and you can't question them because of their skin, that's racism. And it can work the other way. And
I just wanted to point out, because I don't know if everyone knows you, you are black yourself, and it seems like, on a personal level, this kind of stuff really bothers you, being a black conservative in America.
It absolutely does, and I'll tell you why. I used to think like this. Okay, I was born and raised in Los Angeles, California, born in Compton, California. For those in the listening audience that knows that, got involved in crime, all this kind of nonsense. My mom died when I was young. Just a bunch of nonsense. And God, and when I say God, I mean Jesus, because I believe that's the only God there is, radically changed my life when I moved out here. And it was a white man who came to me while I was serving probation at a church, hugged me, told me how much he loved me, acted like I had done nothing wrong. And Yaffee, I've never wept so much in my entire life, besides the death of my mother. Just that release. I was, in my mind, I was a good guy doing stupid things, and to hear, and I love my dad. My dad and I didn't have a great relationship growing up. Thank God, by the grace of God, it has gotten better. But to hear those words first from a white man broke me. At first, I thought he was gay, Yaffee. I had never heard anything like that from a man. The way that I grew up with this hardcore mentality that was just wrong. After that, God radically changed my life. My pastor of the church that I attend is a great friend of mine. I was going through trials and tribulations. The pastor of a mega church right here in Orlando was calling me personally because he had got to know me to see how I was doing. Another white guy. I built a business here. I built a couple of businesses here. And I can tell you, when you try to do well for yourself, you will be shocked, at least black people, you will be shocked at the amount of people that will step up to help you. And so many of those people have been white. So I had to come to the point where I was like, God, forgive me for this mentality that I used to carry. And then I started reading history. I started reading Michelle Monk, and I started reading Star Parker, their stuff. I started reading Larry Elder's books back in the day and some of their columns, and that went to Walter E. Williams and Thomas Sowell. And then I started learning about all of this history, even wall builders, all of this history and this black history that I had never heard of before. And I felt completely duped. And I think what has to happen to black people is what happened to me. If they're not Christians, but at least if they have the right information about the Democratic Party, I just feel completely duped. For the longest, I was taught, if you're black, you're Democrat, and the Democrat Party is on your side. But then when you learn that it was the Democrat Party that formed the KKK, when you learn that it was the Republican Party that freed the slaves, that passed the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment, giving slave citizenship and the right to vote and all of those good things, you're like, wait a minute, the first Civil Rights Act of 1866, not 1964, like the history classes tell us, but the 1866,
and I'm sure a lot of our audience, knows a lot of that history if they're informed. Just like you said, the question I have for you is, sure, when do you think this country can ever get past this sort of racial politics, identity politics, and we could focus, instead of on race, on groups, that we could focus on the individual?
Man, that is a hard question. I'll put it this way. I think the Church of Jesus Christ really has to step up to the plate. And honestly, if it doesn't happen in the church, I don't expect it to happen in the world. I expect, sadly so, that things will actually get worse, quite frankly, because I don't even see Christians that are biblically literate or living out their faith. Blacks, whites, sadly, and until we can be an example to the rest of America, if you will, I just don't see it happening. So I just think that Christians need to step up, to be blunt.
All right. We only have a couple of minutes here. I did want to get your take on DeSantis. Do you think DeSantis has a chance to win this election? Because I've known you have been talking about how his campaign has been weak by all measures.
Yeah, I think DeSantis has a chance to win in spite of him, quite frankly. And that's not any thanks to him. I mean, I just think that people are going to come out. I think Andrew Gillum playing the race card hurt him. Obviously, this information coming out, I believe, is going to hurt him. But Ron DeSantis just wasn't ready for the race that was before him. He relied on Trump too heavily. He relied on Sean Hannity. He relied on Laura Ingraham. And he hadn't really run a statewide race. He wasn't used to that. He was used to running the congressional race. So, and then you add the fact that Andrew Gillum won. I don't think no one was expecting Andrew Gillum to win, including myself. I thought it was going to be Gwen Graham. I really think that really threw a wrench in his campaign. And then he comes out with that monkey comment, and I think he got scared. After he saw how the media reacted to him with that comment, I literally think he got scared, and as a result, he became inaccessible to the media. I mean, I go on TV rather frequently, and I will ask the people, hey, how come you haven't had DeSantis in? Well, he hasn't gotten back with us. Or, you call Andrew Gillum, and he's there. He shows up. And listen, you just can't do that. Andrew Gillum is going to play the race card. He's proved that. The only thing that Ron DeSantis can do is talk about policy, and he's got to make it personal. He's got to kind of teach people while he's talking to people how these policies are going to impact them, not just the state, but on an individual level, and how Gillum's policies are dangerous.
I just want to say I'm really glad you brought that up, because one thing DeSantis brought up in the debate was the fact that Gillum supports a single-payer health care system.
Yes.
And exactly how that's going to affect us. Carl, we are out of time, but you have a 2-hour show every week on WFLA from 8 to 10 p.m. Carl Jackson. And you also have how can people find you on Twitter, and do you have a website?
Yeah, if they go to Facebook, Carl Jackson Radio, be sure to add the radio, and then my website, carljacksonshow.com. That'll lead you to all the other stuff.
All right, man. I really appreciate you coming on with me. You've been on everything lately. You've been on all over TV. You were on Tucker Carlson recently, making the rounds.
I'm trying to become as big time as you, Yaffee.
Okay.
It's really that simple.
I think you're already there. That did not take much. I think you're past that. All right. I appreciate you coming on, my friend.
All right. Thanks a lot, man. You do a great job.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. This is Beyond Reason Radio. We'll be right back.
If you heart Beyond Reason Radio, listen to the Beyond Reason Radio podcast on iHeartRadio. Just download the iHeartRadio app and search Beyond Reason Radio. This is Orlando's Smart Talk Radio. Beyond Reason Radio continues now.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. This is your voice of reason, your voice of truth in a world that is beyond reason. We are on until 7 p.m. right here on News Radio 93.1 WFLA, a special edition of Beyond Reason Radio. And if you ever miss any of the show, I usually do at least one show a week. You can catch the podcast of the show anywhere podcasts are available. Just download the iHeartRadio app and search Beyond Reason Radio, and it's up there. So there you go. And so do you remember, it was just a couple of years ago, when now the late Charles Krauthammer was on Fox News, I believe it was Special Report, and he said this.
I think historically speaking, we're at the midpoint. We had 7 years of Obamacare, a change in expectations, and I would predict that in less than 7 years we'll be in a single-payer system. But the irony is, in the end, I think Obamacare wins the day because it changed expectations. Look at the terms of the debate. Republicans are not arguing the free market anymore. They have sort of accepted the fact that the electorate sees health care as not just any commodity. It's not like purchasing a steak or a car. It's something that people now have a sense the government ought to guarantee.
That's a right.
Right.
So it was just a couple of years ago. Krauthammer said we are maybe 6-7 years away from single payer. And I think in a lot of ways he might be right, unfortunately. Because what he said there is very interesting. He said the reason why is because people have a different expectation from their government now. That people now expect that healthcare is a right and that it is something that should be provided by the federal government. This is why a lot of conservatives really don't like single-payer healthcare, because it fundamentally transforms the individual's relationship to the federal government. That gives the federal government a lot of power and a lot of control and vastly expands its duties. And if you're a limited government free market conservative, you can't buy into that. But he says the fact is the debate has changed where even Republicans are no longer fighting really for a free market solution. That was a couple of years ago. Well, I have a poll here that kind of shows that Krauthammer was right. It says a majority of young Americans support single-payer health care and other expanded government services. This is according to the Associated Press NORC Center for Public Affairs poll. 69% of Americans in between the ages of 15 and 34, so the younger demographic, and I'm in that demographic, I'm obviously not one of those who said that, I'm not one of the 69%, are in favor of a single-payer health care program. Now, it says a wide majority of young Democrats, 88%, said they support such a program, as did about 2/3 of young independents and 40% of young Republicans. That's the most stunning part of this poll. The most stunning part of the poll is the fact that 40% of young Republicans now think it's the government's job to provide health care and now want a single-payer health care system. That's a little disturbing. If you are a Republican, and this is the problem, there are too many Republicans out there who really aren't small government conservatives. They're Republican for other reasons, and that's kind of a whole other issue. But that kind of shows that maybe Krauthammer was right. Now, there is a little bit of nuance to this poll, which I brought up before. The fact is, there are a lot of different types of government health care. When you say single-payer health care, I don't think everyone really knows what that means. Now, this was something, actually, once again, that was brought up in the debate between Ron DeSantis and Andrew Gillum, because Andrew Gillum is a Democratic socialist. He supports Bernie Sanders' plan for Medicare for all. DeSantis was bringing this up and was basically saying why one of the biggest reasons why this is a problem. And DeSantis is exactly right here, even though Gillum tried to say DeSantis was lying. Well, here's the exchange.
Under a single payer plan, man, that'll make the VA waiting list look like the Fast Pass at Disney World. You support Medicare for all. Read the bill.
Define
That's what
Medicare
it does.
For all.
You ran commercials saying you supported single payer. That's not a good health care plan for Floridians. So I want to protect people's current arrangements. Government should not force you off your plans.
And neither would I. The congressman, again, his votes have diluted him into his own definition of what health care is.
So you don't support Bernie Sanders' Medicare for all?
What I support is expanding Medicaid for over 800,000 Floridians who deserve to have access to their own doctor.
If a single payer came to your desk as governor, would you sign it or veto it?
What I would do is expand Medicaid
for over 800,000 of the most medically needy people. Would you sign the bill for single-payer health care? You wouldn't sign it?
So there was the argument. He was basically saying, which is exactly right, as a part of the Medicare for All plan pushed by Bernie Sanders, it would outlaw existing private health insurance. This was something I brought up on the show before because there has been a debate even on the Democrat side on what single payer or what Medicare for all should look like. There were some who were saying, well, private insurance will still exist, but you'll also have government insurance. But then the Democrat socialists actually wrote a piece in Vox pointing out that the Medicare for all that they support and that the Bernie Sanders support would in fact outlaw private insurance. And they believe that's what would be good for the country. So Gillum's trying to backtrack off of this, and obviously Gillum as governor can't really do a whole lot in this. This is a federal government thing. I mean, he can make steps to vastly expand Florida government's power over health care, maybe do a statewide single payer. It would be almost impossible to pass that in the Florida legislature. But DeSantis is right that what he supports is a Medicare for all on a nationwide basis. If a Bernie Sanders type plan was put in effect, what Bernie Sanders and what the Democrat socialists ultimately want, and they have admitted this, what they ultimately want is to outlaw private insurance and have a single-payer government system. If that is pointed out to a lot of the people, if that is pointed out, I don't think you would have that many people in this poll supporting it. Because there's probably a lot of people in the poll who like the healthcare plan they have, especially if they're on their parents' plan. A lot of them.
The people who favored the poll look at the icing. What they're not thinking about is what's inside the cake to make it happen. And what's inside the cake is not very appealing.
Well, yeah, not only that, but it would double the size of the government. It would nearly double the size for government. A recent analysis, which I pointed out, and Bernie Sanders has practically admitted, is that it would cost $32.6 trillion over its first 10 years. Now, what I usually hear is, well, that's cheaper than what we're all paying for private insurance. I don't like that argument because then you could use that argument for anything. So if the government completely took over grocery stores in this country, they would probably make it cheaper for the country as a whole than what we pay in the private sector. But is that really what you want? Do you want the government taking over grocery stores? No, there's obviously more to it than just the overall cost to a country. There's way more to it than that. So to say, well, it would be cheaper than the private sector. First off, maybe in the first 10 years, but after that, I completely doubt it. But second, there's a lot more to it. And freedom in the free market, at least it's people paying their own money. Now, there's no doubt there's problems in the healthcare system the way it is now. I mean, it hasn't been completely free market for a long time. But when DeSantis points that out, he was right. That's what the Democrat socialists have admitted that they want. All right, we have a lot more to get to on the show today. If you want to call, you can call 407-916-5400. Text to 23680 where standard message and data rates apply. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. We'll be right back.
If you miss any of the show, you can download the Beyond Reason podcast on iTunes. The conscience in your ear telling you the difference between right and wrong. Yaffee is back on the air.
Well, this is always the problem when I only have an hour. There's so much that I just don't have time to get to on the show, so much I have to say, but we'll try to do it in the next 8 minutes or so. One thing I do want to talk about here, by the way, this is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee, is I posted on Twitter earlier this week, and you can follow me at Beyond Reason R. It was a big story earlier this week. It's been a big story up till today, this whole caravan of migrants coming up from Central America. Basically, they bum rushed the border into Mexico, and the Mexicans tried to stop them, couldn't stop them. Now they're coming up through Mexico, and they're coming to the U.S. border. And Trump had pointed out in a statement that he would be willing to send the U.S. military to stop them. And, I merely asked the question. I said, well, not just how. Tom Benson is saying how. That's a good point. It would have to be, I guess, kind of like what Eisenhower did when he sent the 101st Airborne to help desegregate the schools. But my first question was, what exactly do you want the military to do? Well, what are they going to do? Are they going to shoot them? Do you really want to send the military down there to the border and shoot them as they're coming in? And I basically said, it sounds great to say you're going to send the military, but it really doesn't solve anything, because there's no way. Could you imagine the fallout if there's some kind of confrontation between migrants and the U.S. military? You want to talk about polarization in this country, that would make things worse. I'm not saying we shouldn't stop them. I'm not saying we should just let them all in. But what I'm saying, my mere point was that sending the military, I'm not sure is the best option, because as Colin Powell said, the military's job is to break things and kill people. That's sending them to the southern border. I'm not sure is going to be the great solution that you think it is. It just sounds good. That being said, the best solution to this problem in general is to build the wall. I agree with Trump on that part. Build a wall or some kind of really strong border fence. And I have to say, a lot of people disagree with this, but I think Trump is actually pretty smart to make this a campaign issue. Because when you see a group of 7,000 people or so, and they're going to try to bum rush the border, the majority of the American people are not going to support that. They're just not going to support that. Even those who want more of an open immigration system in this country, even those who really want that, are not going to support thousands of people at once coming up and trying to break through the country. So Trump bringing that up, I actually think it's smarter than people are willing to admit. I talk about here when Trump makes mistakes, but it's actually pretty smart. Now, something else came up this week that Trump said that had a lot of controversy behind it. And go ahead and play this cut. It was from Trump at the Texas rally earlier this week.
A globalist is a person that wants the globe to do well, frankly, not caring about our country so much. And you know what? We can't have that. They have a word. It sort of became old-fashioned. It's called a nationalist. And I say, really, we're not supposed to use that word. You know what I am? I'm a nationalist, okay? I'm a nationalist.
Now, a lot of different people came out, and this is proof Trump is a racist because he's talking about white nationalism. I really don't think that's a fair criticism. I'm not one who says he's I'm a nationalist. But it was obvious what Trump was talking about there is he's talking about putting America first and America's interest first over globalism. That's what Trump is talking about. It was pretty obvious that we have to put our country first, and that's why we have to secure the border, because we have to put, as president of the United States, he's going to put America's interest first. And a lot of people are going to respond positively to Trump saying that. That being said, I do want to talk a little bit about the term nationalism. Usually the reason I don't like to use the term nationalist, I would rather use the term patriotic, is because nationalism historically has sort of a connotation to the idea that what makes this country great is its blood and soil. I'm going to put America first because of where we are and everything. That's not what makes America great. It's not blood and soil that makes America great. What makes America great and what makes me support America and want to put America first isn't that. It's the ideas, the founding principles, the ideas behind the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, and the ideas of the Bill of Rights and freedom. It is those ideas that I support. That's why I like the term patriotic. When you go towards nationalist, you're going really beyond just supporting the ideas. You're supporting the blood and soil aspect. If this country became some sort of authoritarian dictatorship, like Nazi Germany or something, and started doing bad things and then try to conquer the world or something like Hitler did, then I wouldn't support this country anymore, because it's not about the country or necessarily about the people. I mean, I support the people now, but it's about the ideas behind the country. That's what I would support. So that's why I like the term patriotism over just plain nationalism. But I really don't think Trump has thought about it that deeply. People love to put these things into Trump's head or put words in his mouth. And even if he doesn't say it, where they're like, well, he really meant this. And this happens in politics all the time on both sides. But I really think all he's saying is, I'm not a globalist. I'm going to put America first. He's been saying that his whole administration. He's continuing to say that. He feels like we've done too much for the world while not doing enough for the people in this country. And as a president, his job should be really to put America first. But as long as he puts conservative limited government principles first, and the principles behind the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence first, that's what you have to put first to put America first, if that makes any sense to anyone out there. So I just wanted to point that out, but I think sometimes we look too deeply. We try to read too much into things that Trump says, and usually the best way is, oh well. All right. There was a lot more I could have got to on the show today, but I think we're almost out of time, Tom Benson.
Yeah, there's a guy with a hook outside the stage left, ready to yank it.
Yeah, but it was a good show. If you miss any of the show, you can catch the podcast anywhere podcasts are available. By the way, you can follow me on Twitter at Beyond Reason R. You can follow me on Facebook, just like the Beyond Reason Radio Facebook page. And the debate between Ron DeSantis and Andrew Gillum, it's on Channel 2, I believe, West Channel 2. I'll have to watch some of what's going on there and see how he does. DeSantis, he's got to pick up his game if he wants to win this, because he really has been a lame candidate. And I think Carl Jackson's right. I think he's scared. I think after the whole monkey it up controversy, he was really scared to come out. And so many different stations have been trying to get him on, not just us. They can't get him on. He doesn't want to come on. So we'll see what happens. I'm not sure he even expected to win, but we'll see what happens. All right, I appreciate you all listening to the show, and I'll catch you guys next time.